Hey friends, welcome back. I am Jason, and let's talk gear repair. If you spend any time outside around sharp, pokey things, in the woods, walking off trail, you're gonna tear your clothes up. You're gonna rip a hole in your pack. You're gonna wear things out. Stuff's gonna happen, and you need to have some options for repairing that stuff in the field. This is kind of what I go to for the most part. 90% of the time you can fix something at least temporarily with this duct tape right here. This is Gorilla Tape, really good stuff, really strong stuff, and I almost always have some of it. Now in the past I have used this Sil nylon patch kit, which works fine. You get these little holes when you get close to a fire, and the nylon melts obviously when you get little hot embers landing on it, but and this is a nice, professional, really clean looking way of doing it. However, it's not necessary. If I was to have a hole in this, I don't think I have any fresh holes in here, but if I was to have a hole in this, I'm telling you, this is what I would do, and this is what I've done on my ponchos for a long time, is just take yourself a small piece of this duct tape. Make sure it's the good stuff, the Gorilla Tape. A small piece like that, maybe even rip it down smaller. Now let's say this little stain right here is my hole. Put that duct tape over there and it lasts forever. It lasts for years. I mean, I'm telling you, I've used duct tape like this on puffy jackets before. You know, puffy jackets are pretty fragile and then the feathers start falling out and all that, and it's pretty irritating. I've put Gorilla Tape over the puffy jacket hole and it has lasted years. Even after several washes, it stays on there, which is pretty incredible. So that's all you really need to do to fix it. But now let's say you had some sort of tear or damage to some sort of fabric. You'd want to have a way to sew. Now here's a sewing kit that I made, carved out of a piece of pine, and it's also a fishing kit. So I've got a fishing hook tied on there that I can use if I want to do a little fishing. Plus it looks cool, right? So I can keep that in my pocket or in the side pouch of my pack. Got an extra hook here underneath that Ranger band, and I've got 2 needles right there. And I can use the fishing line itself as the thread if I choose to, or I can use something else like this tarred mariner's line, and otherwise known as bank line, is pretty good stuff. If I was to take a section of this right here, just a short piece, for example, and I untwist it, you get 3 individual strands. And those strands are perfect. It's a little bit of a pain to get it undone, but you just untwist. Like so. And now I've got a single strand of cord that is perfect for stitching up clothes, the crotch of your pants. If you step on a high log or something and rip your pants, nobody wants that. So you can patch it up using that. And I'm gonna show you an example of how to do that on my pack right here. I can use this needle in my fishing kit right here if I want. I can use this rip spool. The rip spool is cool. This is from Exotac. This is cool because it comes with everything that you need. Underneath this tape right here is some really strong thread that you can use to patch up your gear. So I like that, and this is kind of the store-bought version of my homemade kit. It's got a really good needle. I think it's a little bit big. It's really good for like gear repair, I would say. For like this pack, it's going to be fine. But for your clothes, this might be a slightly big needle. It'll get the job done, but it's just not necessary to have that big of a needle. But I do like this rip spool a lot, and I think it's really handy and definitely worth carrying because it's just kind of a one-stop shop gear repair right there. Duct tape plus a sewing kit. I'd pull off maybe probably that bigger needle right there. This one. Pull out that bigger needle, fish my bank line through the eye, pull it to about right there, give yourself a few inches right there so it doesn't slip out, and then I'm ready to stitch. Now trust me, I am no seamstress, so maybe you should take your sewing lessons from somebody else, but I'll show you the basics and what has worked for me. I've stitched up my pants before. I've stitched up pockets before on my pants that have kind of torn away from the pants, the back pocket. I have stitched up holes in packs before, and it has lasted for years and years and years. So this is the method that I would use. So let's say, for example, that this seam right here has torn on my pack. It wouldn't, because this is double stitched and really well done from P&W Bushcraft. But let's say it did. I was abusing it in some form or fashion, and it just was failing at this moment. So let's say that happened. What I would do is I would stick my needle through right here. I would gather the material together. It depends on where it is. Like if I had a cut in the fabric right here, I might just bunch the two ends together and sew it up like that, but it makes it kind of ugly. You can overlap the two layers. It just depends on the situation. But let's say the seam busted out. I would just pinch the two layers back together, push my needle through like so, pull it all the way through, and on this end right here, I tie myself a knot right here, and I like to leave myself a little bit of cordage on the end, like 1.5 inches or so. So I've got myself a knot, maybe 2 knots, just so it's a big ball and it won't get pulled through. Like that. And then I can stitch away, and that knot keeps it from getting pulled through the fabric. Just keep moving my way up the torn seam here. Let's say this section right here was the part that's torn. I would just move my way up through here. I'd go through. I'd go up about, this is pretty big cordage, so you can't go super close together, but I'd say I'd go about 1/8 of an inch up, give or take. I'd go through the fabric one more time, but then instead of just pulling it tight, I'm going to go through this loop that I've created right here and kind of tie it off in like a half hitch almost. See that? See how it's kind of made a loop right there and a knot? It's a half hitch sort of knot. And then I'd pull that tight. And then I'd move up about 1/8 of an inch. Now what I want to do is to finish it off, if I do my last stitch here, last stitch, leave that free there. Last stitch, I'll leave that loop loose, and then I'll take it through once, twice, 3 times. 3 times through, and then I'll pull that tight. And that creates a knot right there. On the end of this bank line, this tarred mariner's line holds really good. The knots don't come out of it. I mean, that'll last forever just like that. And that is pretty much a finished product right there. Pull that knot really good and tight. Like that. I can put my needle back into my kit. Put my needle back into my sewing kit. And now I'm going to snip the cordage off about, I'm going to give myself maybe 1/4 inch, something like that. I don't want to cut it off too short. I want to have about 1/4 inch right there, and it's okay if it fuzzes up and frays a little bit. Same thing here, cut it off about 1/4 inch. What I will do is I will take my lighter and I will just melt that right there, that end, that frayed end. And that's not only going to make it look cleaner and nicer, but if I smush it flat, that'll keep that knot from ever coming undone. There we go. And that is a pretty clean, stitched up repair job right there. And it will last a long time. I don't have any other examples except for this. This is a wallet that I made a long time ago using bank line right there. And I tied it off in exactly the same fashion and melted the ends. And I've been carrying this in my pocket for I think 12, 13 years, give or take. And it's still going strong. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Really do appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up, subscribing if you haven't done so already. Leave a comment. What's your go-to gear repair method? Is this sufficient? Did this get the job done? Thanks, guys. See you on the next one.